Okay, hello friends. I hope you're doing well. I literally just uploaded another video and I might just upload these back to back because I'm having issues with my phone as per usual. But I wanted to give you an update because I just got back from my 3-month checkup. I wanted to tell you something about your checkups because I wasn't told something and things didn't go well. It's fine. But yeah, so I am over 3 months on T now. I've had 6 full shots, so I should actually be 3 months and 2 weeks, I think. I don't know. But I'm 3 months and a couple weeks on testosterone. Over the past month, so from month 2 to like 3 and beyond, the biggest things I have noticed is continued bottom growth and then my natural mustache that I just have, like most people have at least a couple of slightly longer, darker hairs, regardless of their assigned sex at birth or whatever the fuck. It has slowly been just kind of growing out, and I even see some like shorter, darker hairs starting to sprout higher up towards actually like my nose crease, because I only have like a couple like on the very outside of my lip, and it's just slowly filling in and going up. These are not proper mustache hairs yet, but I'm starting to grow proper facial hairs where there was only like fine vellus hair before. So that is a process that is starting, and I do think I'm just starting to have some pretty significantly noticeable body fat changes. Not the ones that I want, but I can't really show you my mustache very well, I don't think. I'll try to insert some pictures that I took. I'm also getting a couple of longer, darker hairs and one actually pretty dark chin hair. I've got my first dark chin hair. I've been waiting for this moment. I finally noticed it at work. But I work in like really bright fluorescent lights, so I can see these things very well. And then I go out in the sunlight and I'm like, wow, this is nothing that anyone can see yet, but it does mean that things are slowly changing. My hot flashes have pretty much stopped completely. I feel a lot more regulated and normal. My irritability has pretty much gone away. I've dealt with some pretty bad depression recently, but I've also been really stressed about potential legislation in my state. But I was able to talk at my appointment that day. I'll give you a quick physique rundown. Here is my body. I have gained a couple of pounds. Not as many as it feels like I have, because I'm very sensitive to my weight changes. Here is just everything all together. I have really, I have trans tape on, don't worry, I'm good. Fat really hasn't moved out of my chest or my hips yet. My hips have been killing me lately. They don't look that bad right now, but I've been really struggling with hip dysphoria especially, but yeah, I've been increasing my workout stuff. My legs really don't look any different. I think my calves might actually be slightly slimmer than when I started T. So I think I am just starting to get some of my fat from my extremities moving towards the center of my body, which I think is why I feel like my hips look so big. Because I think that whole area is probably going to get bigger, and it's going to be weird for me body image wise, but very much so worth it. I can't believe I went from my arms being the most hated thing on my body to them being my favorite. Like my hands have also changed quite a bit, but I went from not doing much to doing a lot of calisthenics and weightlifting. Like in general, like my hands are like strong, but it's literally the muscles in my hands that make sense. I do a lot of pull-ups, I lift dumbbells, I'm constantly on my hands, like gripping the ground in different like headstand variations and stuff like that. Like I use my hands a lot, so it makes sense. But I'm even starting to get little calluses on my hands from my dumbbells. I'm so excited. It feels great to find joy in working out instead of just self-harm. But yeah, we aren't there yet, but we're working on it. I am pretty proud of my lat growth. It's just starting, but yeah. See, there's stuff happening, but it's slow, and I feel like testosterone is only just now maybe starting to influence that. But I do feel like some of the fat is starting to kind of like trickle out of my arms, as well as I'm building a lot of muscle there because that's where I'm putting the majority of my focus in. Okay, now let's talk about what happened at my appointment. I showed up and I was really nervous, and I talked to them about like the legislation that keeps being pushed, and very quickly he was like, okay, so I can't tell you exactly what we're gonna do in case that happens, but you should have access because of your age to care regardless. It might be under a different branch, it might be under a different company name, but we are going to do everything we can as a company to still provide access to trans patients, even if state funding is pulled. It just probably won't be this exact location. It'll probably be a little different. But he told me, he was like, your situation, your age, I'm not worried about you. I believe you will continue to have coverage throughout this year and healthcare. And he was like straight up with me. He's like, I'm really stressed about my younger patients. He was like, I've got a trans girl who's 22 who's been on hormones since she was like 12 or 14. I can't remember exactly what he said. He said 12. And he was like 10 years. And I'm really stressed for her. And I was like, understandable. I just kind of needed you to put me in my place and give me a little bit of peace of mind. Thank you. So I got what I needed emotionally out of that. I should be a lot calmer now. That's been mostly the biggest driver of my depression, and I think it's been trickling over into my body image, where I've been hyper focused on my hips. I had 2 days in a row over this weekend where I took off my shirt and started bawling, crying because my hips don't fit my image of myself, and it feels like they're just getting bigger and bigger. And then I was confused because I checked my weight and my weight hadn't changed at all, and I was like, but I look so much bigger, and just like freaking out. Not in a good place, but I think so much of that is I don't have control over what my state is doing to me and my community. I have such little influence and such little power that my old form of taking control of my bodily autonomy in a self-destructive but very obvious way is breathing down my neck. So I've just been really trying to work on my expectations for myself and remind myself of course, all the men who are both trans, cis, whatever the fuck, who also have hips, and that honestly, before I started working so hard on my body, I didn't mind them as much, and that it's okay if I just need to reintegrate that back into my image of myself. Another thing too, a lot of people don't realize is that if you build up your shoulders really big, it does make your waist look smaller in comparison. That can be a cheat to an hourglass figure. But since I'm not getting weight redistributed into my waist, it's still a very small waist. The fact that I'm building up like my quads and my shoulders, it's kind of just making it look even smaller by comparison, which any hip fat I have is gonna look even bigger by comparison. So it's all just like, my body is just all these like pieces and parts that aren't quite fitting together right yet, but I'm really trying to work on, like, that's not a bad thing. It's just it's just in progress, and that's kind of cool. It's an unfinished piece, and that's okay. Also, I'm wearing my Lingua Ignota shirt. I love her. I love wearing this shirt with trans tape. It's amazing. Anyways, so we talked about that, and I felt better, and I was like, cool, yeah, amazing. And then he was like, so when was your last shot? And I was like, last night. And he was like, oh, well, we can't pull labs today because your levels would be super high, and I actually like to do it way later. And I was like, oh, like at the end of the second week? And he was like, yeah, maybe even like the day before your shot. Actually, maybe even the morning of, if you're free. And I was like, oh. I didn't even get to have my labs pulled today. I didn't know that. I don't know why I didn't think of that, because it makes sense. Your levels when you are on bi-weekly testosterone, they're going to be so high for the first couple days and then so low towards the last couple. Like, I don't know why I didn't think of that, but I'm also not a medical doctor. They should have told me this. This is a very small clinic. They need more people working there. They need more time. They need more space to breathe. They need help. But they're small, and I've already been running into issues with them, with how they've treated me, and also just like just basic little silly mistakes, like maybe telling me that I need to schedule my appointments in a way that lines up with my shots correctly before I schedule them. So yeah, I scheduled a lab check for 2 weeks from now, which is going to be March 6th. So my labs will be pulled then. That's going to be the morning before my next shot. And I did tell him these things are going very slow and I'm not happy. It's very, very slow. I'm excited by what I have seen. I like what I'm seeing, but it is so slow, and I'm feel pressure from these things that are happening in the world around me that I'm gonna lose access to care before I even get my permanent effects. And he, of course, you know, we had that conversation where he was like, I'm very confident you're gonna be able to still continue to have care. It just might be a bumpy road. But you know, he also respected the fact that I'm like, just in general, like, yeah, the first thing he was like, how's it been going? I was like, slow, so slow. And he asked me, he was like, have you noticed anything with your voice? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he was like, it's okay, everyone's different, it takes time. And I was like, I know. He also was surprised that I am still having period symptoms. So I had another breakthrough bleed this month. I'm pretty much about to give up on NuvaRing. I don't really feel like having sexual relationships right now anyways, because I'm just really stressed about everything, and I'm getting to know my new body, let alone other people getting to know my new body. And luckily a lot of penis havers in the local queer community, when my state banned abortion, they were like, all right, so vasectomy appointment next week. So the last couple of people that I've talked to with penises straight up have had vasectomies. So, that's been nice. But I also told him, I was like, he was like, what about like, he really wants me to go on Depo, and I'm like, I just don't think I can do it. I'm sorry, too scared. And then he mentioned an IUD, and I was like, well, sir, I want a fucking hysterectomy. So we talked about the hysterectomy thing, and he was like, you know, if it's just an issue with your period, it really should go away in the next 3 months. Like, if it's not the first 3, it'll be the next 3. And I was like, no, it's my reproductive autonomy and the fact that I've known consistently since I was 10 years old that I don't want kids, and I haven't wavered on it once. And I've had to spend all of these years having periods that I don't want, especially once I realized I was trans, and also having to spend a bunch of money and appointments on birth control when I know that it can just go. And also there's the fact that if I stay on testosterone long term, sometimes people who keep their uteruses have really annoying symptoms that can be alleviated by having a hysterectomy. So like, kill literally 3 birds with 1 stone. Get it out of me. The most important one being, I'm not okay being a fertile person. I don't want any, no, I wish I had a penis and that I could get a vasectomy. I know they aren't 100%, but it seems like they have a little bit better success rate than tubal ligations. But anywho, so we did talk about that. I just wanted to say, if you didn't know, if you do injections, schedule accordingly and ask your doctor about it. Because I was not told, and I showed up and they were like, well, no lab check for you. So when I told him about how I'm feeling and everything, he was like, okay, we'll check your levels, and if they aren't where they need to be, we'll talk about a dosage increase. And he was like, but I won't be surprised if we maybe necessarily don't need one. He was like, you know, a lot of times this dose is really effective, more effective than people expect. But I did make it clear that I'm not like happy with the rate of things. So we'll see. He said he'll call and talk to me once we get the labs back, and that's everything. Yeah, I think I'll be a little more mentally stable now that I've gotten clarification from my clinic that they are looking into things and doing what they can, and they have backup plans for in case certain legislation happens. But my heart and soul goes out to all the people who are going to be stranded because of this stuff, because people who've had orchiectomies and people who've had hysterectomies for hormones, they literally need hormones to be healthy because they don't have what they need to produce either estrogen or testosterone. So they need to be on some sort of HRT, regardless of whether it's testosterone or estrogen. And I don't understand what the government is thinking they're doing. But I think now I'll be able to process this stuff a little bit better, and my mental health personally will improve. I'm just really worried about everyone else in my community. It's fucked up. But hopefully within the next 3 months I'll have a lot more to write home about. It's mostly just been continued bottom growth, which is great. Love it so much. Some facial hair changes. I think my hairline might just be starting to move, which I'm cool with. I want a nice like M-shaped hairline. would love that. I've also been like pulling at my hair a lot too, though, so that's part of it. Like when my wigs are like messing around and there's a hair sticking down, I'm just like, yank. I need to quit doing that. Some musculature improvements, just starting to have some body fat redistribution. Oh, I think my leg hair is darker, actually. It's hard for me to tell because I started growing my leg hair back out while I was going on hormones, but I think in my brain I've just been like, wow,